The pandemic, as we all know, has had a terrible impact on learning. But as I was saying before, it feels like it would have been a lot worse without Zoom. It's funny to think back. It's like there's this line in history where it's like before Zoom, after Zoom. And it feels like Zoom suddenly materialized out of nothingness just in time to make distance learning somewhat tolerable. With that being said, I'm pleased to introduce Pat Lamorte, the company's global K-12 education solutions lead. Pat, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for Zoom's support and for taking the time to join us as a speaker today.
Well, thank you for having me. How are you today?
I'm doing perfect. What about you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad to be part of this esteemed lineup today and to talk to students, the voices we need to hear more from. So as Zaid said, I'm Pat Lamorte. And before I introduce myself to this setting, I'm going to launch a poll here to kind of gather some information to hear from you as we're speaking. So I am with Zoom Video Communications. I am the global education lead for K-12 and higher ed. Prior to that, I spent 2 years on the sales team in education. But before that is where it gets really important in my mind for this conversation. Prior to Zoom, I was in education for 26 years. So I served as a classroom teacher in a high school level for 16 years, a school principal for 3 years, and a school president equal to a public school superintendent for 5 years. So I basically live and breathe the model and really believe in imagining school for what it needs to be tomorrow, not what it was yesterday. So with that said, I have some presentations to share with you, and then I'll entertain any questions from there. All right, so share my screen. Let's look at the poll that came in real fast. Who has used Zoom for schooling over the past 2 years? 91%. So Zaid, to your point, the before Zoom and after COVID line is relevant here. If yes, have you conducted a meeting as a host? This is a great stat. Thank you for sharing, because it's important to see Zoom as a tool for enabling communications across all of your activities. And I'll show you that in a second on the slide. Have you used Zoom for a social or family meeting over the past year? So that's really interesting, right? So like Zaid said, before COVID, Zoom was a meeting solutions tool maybe for a commercial corporate, and now it's become a noun and a verb. And I personally have been on family birthday parties and weddings and just meetings for different associations I volunteer with, where it wouldn't have been possible otherwise to keep those going. So thank you for sharing that answer from yourself. 21%, try it, you'll love it. I mean, it doesn't replace face-to-face contact, but it's really good second. Have you or anyone ever experienced the digital divide? Yes. And we'll talk more about that when we get into this slide. So thank you for sharing these results. It gives me a good context of the user base in the audience today. So with that being said, I'll share my screen and let's go on a little journey of what Zoom is doing and will be doing to support education and how student voice becomes very important in that journey. So can you see my slideshow, Zaid?
Yeah, it looks perfect.
Okay.
If you could actually click the present mode really quickly though.
Say again?
If you could put it in present mode, your slideshow, that'd be great.
Yep, absolutely. Here we go. All right, so thank you for sharing your results. As you know, Zoom is a unified communication system. What some people don't know, and schools are learning quickly, is that we go much beyond meetings. Meetings is our entry point. It's our bread and butter. You know us for meetings, you've used us for meetings. But from there, we're looking at how we can become campus or school-wide critical. And what that is offering communication skills across all areas. So let's go on a little tour here. So Zoom offers a unified, comprehensive communications platform that enables secure, flexible, and reliable ways of learning, teaching, work, and research across the education ecosystem globally. Our platform, both for K-12 and higher ed, has been used in many ways, including virtual classes, student-to-student collaboration, online and hybrid classes, synchronous online classes and courses, professional work groups, staff training, PD, administrative and staff meetings, district collaborations. It kind of replaces the need for mileage reimbursement and time on the road. Teaching and learning, content sharing and collaboration, guest lecturers, virtual field trips, record and share classroom, breakout rooms, and polling, which we'll discuss in a second. Student engagement, study groups, and team projects, career counseling, office hours, parent tech nights. Zoom has a lot of use cases. We've even seen graduations last year in Zoom. Graduations, fundraisers, sporting events. Zoom has live streaming built in. So with an iPad on a tripod, you can stream your football game, your basketball game, your softball game, robotics competition, so that your extended family can see it. And then lastly, in the university level, HR admissions interviews, in the high school level, personnel and teacher interviews, peer-to-peer tutoring. So Zoom goes much beyond the classroom experience and ties your whole campus together, allowing us now, past pandemic, to branch out and really work beyond the four walls. With that said, you probably all have experienced breakout rooms. If not, breakout rooms allow you to break into up to 50 rooms in a Zoom meeting and up to 200 people. So we can actually have group work live with a virtual or hybrid instruction. Any host or co-host can go into a breakout room. And then coming soon, probably before the fall, when you go back to school, if you're going back, we'll have video preview into the breakout rooms. Second to that is our polling. We used it today. Polling is a great way for an assessment tool, what they call a bell ringer or a icebreaker in class. It does give you the results, and afterwards your teacher can go into the dashboard and pull out the exact results and use it as a formative grade. Virtual backgrounds, people love and use. I've seen them used in very good ways of people tying in the content to the lesson to the background they have behind them. Maybe like if you're talking about a certain country or region, or even a state in the US, you can put a map behind you. I've seen biology teachers actually run video behind them of a lab while they're teaching. And you can use branded ones as well. And then background blur was a recent addition that really was necessary once the pandemic hit. The reason it was necessary when you go across the country and across the world is for that student-teacher privacy, because it's the first time we actually are looking into each other's homes. And you never had that view before. So to be able to blur your background like I have on now is a great way on a low tech level to make the background kind of disappear and not make it important in the conversation at all. It also reduces distractions and blurs the background, and it works across all devices. From there, really cool feature. If you haven't tried it, I urge you to try it. In the shared menu, you can use your slides as a virtual background, kind of like a weatherman. So when you put it behind you, right now it's PowerPoint. Soon to come is also Google Slides and Keynote. It makes you small in the corner and you can move yourself around, and your actual background is your presentation and it's active. You can move your slides back and forth as you would normally. So it's a really cool feature. Teachers love it, professors love it, TAs love it, because you can actually utilize that square footage in the frame, especially when you're in gallery mode and frames are smaller. Customizable gallery view. This is pretty awesome, actually. We made it so that teachers or club organizers can move and make a seating chart. And then with one button, you can lock it for all viewers. So if I'm lecturing to you guys and I don't know you normally in a class setting, I can lock the view. So when I say we're going to introduce each other, we're going to start with Zaid and go left to right, I know that everybody has the same order on their screen. Multi-pinning and multi-spotlighting back to back here. Very important tools. Multi-pinning allows you, the individual, to pin someone prominently on the screen. Perhaps an ASL translator, perhaps a key professor or a key teacher in your classroom. It only affects your screen, no one else's. And you can pin up to 9 students or teachers or attendees. The sister feature to this is multi-spotlight. This will affect everybody. So if we're doing a panel discussion and we're not using webinar, and let's say I have 4 people presenting, I can spotlight all 4 people so they stay prominently on the screen no matter who joins or leaves the meeting. So very effective tool. High fidelity music mode was awesome. One of my favorites. I can't play an instrument. I play the radio, but I am a music a lover, aficionado. And what happened was schools like Yale And other schools that had music said, we love Zoom, but we need to control audio better. And we built around this feature where if you are a musician, drama, or just have a production of some sort, you can actually tie a audio mixer board into Zoom, and you can turn off Zoom's audio and turn on high fidelity music mode to let the audio through naturally without Zoom trying to fix the volume or echo. So we have people now in band class and music and choir class doing one-on-one music rehearsals, or a band tying in a soundboard and equalizing the sound out to do a virtual concert, excuse me. Drama productions in the booth have the audio from the microphones going through now for a virtual production. And that's only going to get better. That's a really cool feature. Let's talk about a step. And the idea of this piece is, how do we survive in a hybrid mode? You know, we all did it, and special thanks to the students, not only the parents and the teachers, for pivoting on a dime. And I think what made it unique is it was a global. It wasn't just one school, one district, one town. And we all did a great job, and it was hard. It was very hard. You know, my wife is a 12th grade Brit Lit teacher, and she took a nap every day. And she's been teaching 15 years. And it was very hard to have that fluid environment. And one thing that makes it easier when you're looking at a hybrid world is the room setup itself. And so with Zoom, another platform we support on the Zoom ecosystem is Zoom Rooms, where the room itself becomes the meeting space. So as a student, you might join room 304 or English lab or the teacher's last name. And what that does is it allows you to freely move around the room. Anybody in the room with the teacher's permission can share to the screen wirelessly, including the people at home, giving you an interactive experience that feels like as close as we can get them being with you. And so there are many appliances, as we call them, that will work with that, including what you have. We have schools that put a little better camera on their whiteboards or their Promethean boards, and we call that rock what you got mentality. You don't have to give up equipment to try something different. With the room deployments, what does that look like? You may have noticed this too in some of your schools as we went forward. And that gives them complete campus solution of room scheduling, companion whiteboarding for virtual instruction, digital signage, virtual receptionist at the front office, nurse's office. It also gives you touchscreen ability when you have the appropriate monitors, space management, and layout finding. So if I turn classrooms into a Zoom room, and I wanted to see where in a free classroom is this period to hold a small group discussion, maybe for an AP class, I can touch the monitor control and pull up a map of the school and see which rooms are available at one time. And then the Zoom platform itself ties it in seamlessly. And what that means for use cases is hybrid classrooms, remote tutoring, professional development, field trips, virtual school, career fairs, district collaborations, and guest speakers. If I am the principal of a school and I want to speak to all of you at one time, I can invite every room's Zoom room to a meeting and broadcast my message across the entire campus, multi-building at one time. So it's really pushing the boundaries of what is possible with single source messaging. And one of my favorite things about coming out of this pandemic from a look backwards perspective is we've all accelerated years beyond where we would have been, technology-wise, learning-wise. And what that's forcing now is quick innovation on the technology provider's part to catch up to the needs and the wants. Because three things in my mind have happened talking to hundreds and hundreds of schools. One is coming out of the pandemic, and we're not out of it, we're kind of like at a plateau. New things have come up. Schools now are worried about, how do I keep students enrolled in my district? Right, because now parents are more involved and they realize how accessible education could be. And student voice is involved in understanding that now I don't have to sit into a classroom for 6 hours a day. Perhaps there's a better program I can combine with my experience to get me on the path. So I think we're going to see an uprise in people playing around with the idea of students designing their own personal path moving forward. Right, and that's someone talked about change with the last speaker, and that popped in my mind. The second thing we're seeing in discussions is as many students that struggled in this virtual environment, equal number of students thrived that maybe never would have had the chance to be seen before. And so we're talking to administrators around the country who are saying, you know, how do I work with my Board of Educations and unions to have the agency to meet those students where they're at as well? so we don't potentially lose them, or we don't, fail on their behalf. And then the third thing is that transition to college, right? We're looking at a couple of things here. Number one is the perceived loss of education. Now, one thing I don't want to hear, and I hear it over and over, is that schools are reopening. Schools never closed. The buildings closed, but schools kept on going, right? And so from that point of view, the perceived loss of a year in colleges, I see them kind of altering their admission structure to not lose revenue on the front end. And I read a report yesterday that came out how colleges are seeing a dip in enrollment. The other thing to look at, and if you're in your high school years and you're looking at colleges and beyond, is that reports are showing an estimated $5 trillion spend for corporate training centers and for-profit training groups to open up, which put a perceived threat on the traditional four-year degree. You see that happening over and over. So we have to figure out what that looks like, how colleges are going to respond to this as well as high schools. Lastly, here, some designs. So this is a typical K-12 hybrid design that works well. We've seen them with TVs in the front and the back, including that gallery view to the classroom. We've seen a higher ed classroom have multiple cameras or whiteboard experiences with microphones, and even a higher end classroom having a confidence monitor as well. So the teacher teaching the class can see the students right in front of their eyes, and also they can see the presentation they're presenting, and the students in class can see both in the front wall, giving you that 360 experience. And you might have seen this already in your schools. I mean, working with that, we gained well over thousands and thousands of schools in the last year and a half. And to see them all innovate to stay forward is fascinating. And there's a one indicator that we see that is proven that, hybrid is here and virtual learning is here, whether it parallels the traditional in class, is all the money the government's giving out in stimulus funding. I mean, that's an indicator that, things are going to change. And what it did for educators is change an ancient model of sit in rows and learn, and really brought light to what is possible. And why Zoom rooms for the classroom and the ecosystem? Well, it just makes it easier, right? It's easier to present, to whiteboard share, to collaborate. To me, the important thing is brainstorm, collaboration, and presentation skills, because you're going to be competing for jobs in a global environment and some jobs that don't even exist yet. So the idea to communicate, I always say when I talk to people coming to Zoom, is I can teach you how to work in the Zoom environment. I can't teach you the skills that quickly to be able to assess information, put it into a format, and present it to sell a point. So with that, that was a quick overview of hybrid learning, some of the solutions that you're used to or maybe didn't know Zoom was offering, and then how it can be incorporated into the classroom.
Thank you so much, Pat, for that presentation and for just kind of showing all the new kind of features that Zoom have been coming up with. I know that for me, I use Zoom throughout the entire school year. I used it also for meetings with the State Board of Education, and I use it for personal meetings with, friends and family. So Zoom has just always been there standing by my side. So thank you a ton for that. We actually have some questions for you. The first question is from Sol from Dana Hills High School, who asks, after being exposed to Zoom and other digital communication tools during the pandemic, how do you think careers will continue to adapt and advance their everyday tasks with this technology in the future?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I think what that has shown us is that people, employees, can be equally or more productive from a remote environment. And so it's really forcing corporations and companies of all sizes to evaluate the cost of overhead versus maybe the price of being together in person. And I know, especially with Zoom itself, we have many headquarters around the world. We're seeing an interesting shift on who and when you need to be in the office. So I think what it's done, to answer the question directly, is it's imparted some thought processes of, can we really hire people to come to the office and have a team that works? Or can I be really picky and hire the best people for the job no matter where they live? And that synergy can stay the same.
Perfect. One question that I've had that I know a lot of people have kind of considered in the past is that throughout the pandemic and throughout distance learning, a lot of students who particularly struggle with things like ADHD and other learning disabilities you know, they kind of get tempted, and students who don't even struggle with those get tempted to just, you know, pick up their phone, switch tabs, kind of ignore their teachers. Has Zoom ever considered potentially having like a lockdown feature for teachers where they can lock down a student's browser to just make it like a secured classroom setting so that the student is like kind of forced to pay attention? Or is that something that you guys kind of have considered but are kind of wary against?
Well, you always weigh that option between security and going too far, right?
Mhm.
So I know school districts themselves have ways to lock browsers.
Mhm.
We can integrate with lockdown browsers itself. It's based on the school setting it up, because there's not a Zoom built for education, a Zoom built for finance, a Zoom built for law. It's Zoom. All right.
Yeah.
Now, the administrators have 3 tiers of security to lock things down. And with that being said, we are and have looked at things and even offered before things like attention tracking. But we all know from being, you know, digital natives here that even if we lock down browsers, you can open up different browser. I mean, it's kind of like a mix between training students how to organize time and their priorities versus a self want to do so, mixed with some technology that helps that along.
Definitely agree. One more question, because it seems like we're running short on time, is what do you wish all Zoom users knew so that they would have a better overall experience?
I would say that you cannot break Zoom, so play with it, right? And I really believe, and I know we're running short on time. I can quickly jump over one more second here.
Mhm.
If you want to really do that in a non-school fashion, just to get used to it, you know, you can easily go to a site called onzoom.com, and it's Zoom, where you can take any course, any instruction, and it was built during the pandemic so that if you taught guitar, you can still teach it. If you teach yoga, you can still teach it. So you can go here by topic and play with Zoom or join these courses globally. And some are free, some are paid. But to give you an idea, and I'll end on this note, we have our Zoom support page here with all articles on educating and learning over Zoom. I know we're going to put that in the chat. We also have our education blog with examples of what other schools are doing around the country. And then lastly, Zoom is quickly shifting into the full event space where we can do full summits and events over Zoom coming soon, including multi-day conferences. And then very soon, your teachers will be able to run their entire classroom through Zoom with Zoom apps and bringing things in like Kahoot and other things. So it allows them to focus and not leave Zoom to teach the class. So those
Awesome.
links will be provided so you can play around and share them. And also, you know, on the Ed100 webpage, it says ask Pat a question. Feel free to reach out, ask any questions. I have a team behind me. So if you stump me, we have some people that can help.
I see really quickly that there have been, sorry to keep you on for so long, Pat, but I see that there have been so many questions about Chromebooks. I'm not entirely sure what people are asking about, but I assume that there's maybe a problem with Chromebooks.
I have a pretty good idea, and I can sum it up with some very exciting news.
Uh-huh.
So in the past, the problem with Chromebooks is their performance, speed, and power.
Mm-hmm.
Run all these features, especially virtual backgrounds and screen sharing. And we've been locked and tied down by restrictions on both ends and working very hard together as a team, Google and Zoom, to do that. And so very soon, within the next 2 weeks, we are launching a brand new experience for Chromebooks that features complete parity.
Awesome.
Yep. So it's been top of mind. We've been on many conversations with schools and universities that rolled out Chromebooks. So again, by July 1st, you'll be seeing a Zoom blog announcement where you can install a brand new build from the ground up, which will completely take Chromebooks up to the same level as your browser.
Awesome. I hope that those questioners are cheering right now, because I assume that they are. But Pat, this has just been an awesome opportunity. Thank you so much for joining us and for supporting the conference with Zoom's generous donation. Thank you, and we hope you have a nice day.
I'll say this is the beginning, my friend. The conversation continues because student voice is very important in the future of Zoom, the future of education, the future of workforce.
Awesome. It's so awesome to hear that. Thank you again, and we hope you have a nice day.
Bye now.
Awesome. Bye-bye.